Jerm Warefare is Jeremy Nell on today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
My name is Jerm. This is Jerm Warefare, the battle of ideas. In the previous hour, I was chatting about different metaphorical pills that we swallow, and I just want to kind of stay on that talking point a little bit, because the next guest I'm going to be chatting to is a serious red pill metaphor, even for me, and I think it is true that for the most part of our lives we kind of just wake up and do our thing. And I mean, ignore the pill metaphor for a moment. Just think about how many things in your life you thought were true and now no longer think are true. There must be many. If I were to ask you now, what has been your biggest red pill moment, or what has been your biggest 180? Give it a think. It would be fascinating to know, because I've had a lot of changes in my worldview in the last year and a half, 2 years, maybe more, 2.5 years even. Whether it's man going to the moon, or whether it's I spoke to a guy yesterday about rewriting history. I've always thought, for example, that human history follows a linear timeline. Thousands of years ago we were primitive, and over time we became more and more advanced to where we are today. That seems completely ridiculous to me. Now, I mean, if all you have to do is simply start looking into the pyramids, or look at any of these other huge ancient constructions from around the world. What about Atlantis? What about the intricate networks, developed even inside the pyramids? How they put these huge blocks together without any kind of machinery that could bore holes, etc. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that these were just a bunch of plebs who were, ordered around by a pharaoh. It's so silly to think like that. They were clearly advanced, and something happened. Something happened, and I don't know what the answer is. But the point that I'm trying to make is that there have been very big moments for me. Yes, another one: the existence of not just SARS-CoV-2, but viruses in general. I'm not entirely convinced anymore that viruses are anything meaningful. Even if they are, it really doesn't matter all that much, because if you realize that the responsibility of your health lies with you and not some zombie microbe that's floating around the air waiting to attack you, then you suddenly realize that you have more power for yourself. You are more in control. What about other big things like, well, maybe not such. This is not such a big one, but I remember having a conversation about Marilyn Monroe. That's a very small thing, but the underlying talking point is not necessarily who killed her, but is the fact that there are lots of government cover-ups, without a doubt. The CIA, for example, are immensely involved in cover-ups. JFK, that's a big one. Everyone thinks it was Lee Harvey Oswald. Or what about 9/11? I mean, the official story, in my view, is completely bunk. It's complete nonsense. But the point is this: is that when you start questioning things and wondering how the world actually works, and you start opening that curtain and looking what's behind, it really, really starts opening up your mind to a world of possibilities. I don't want to say the word globe, because I know my next guest his jaw's gonna go out of joint. But but before I go to my guest, let me just quickly tell you that the TNT app is available in the Android and Apple store. I'd strongly recommend you download it, because if you aren't able to listen to the show live, you can listen to it after the fact, whenever you want, wherever you want, anywhere in the world. It's a great app. Anyway, my name is Jerm. This is TNT Radio.
The latest headlines waiting for you.
I follow the news pretty much throughout the day.
Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
David Weiss, it's a pleasure to be chatting to you again. Thank you for joining me in the trenches.
Jerm, thanks for having me on here. Then don't tell me you're one of those moon-denying flat earthers.
Oh, no, I'm not I might deny the moon landing. I'm not sure about the flat earth part, but the fact that I'm talking to you means that I have an open mind.
Yeah, and everybody that's hearing this that is like, oh my God, flat earth, how dumb is this guy? Every flat earther has the same story. We thought flat earth was the dumbest thing ever. And most of us, including me, refuse to even look at a 1-2 minute video. I'm like, I'm not watching that. You're an idiot. Banned. You no longer can comment on my social media. And then if you're lucky, depending on how you look at it, something will force you to look. Something will force you to go beyond searching on Google. Searching on Google and reading the results that they feed you. Excuse me, losing my voice.
Sorry, David, you stopped talking for a moment there.
Did what happened? I just lost my feed for a second. Something happened, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
You hear me okay?
It's fine. No, it's fine. I can hear you. Yeah, you're 100%.
All right. Yeah, no problem. So when you Google flat Earth, you get fed stuff that you would expect. You would get fed stuff from the Flat Earth Society. We're not the Flat Earth Society. That's a disinformation site. You'll get fed what we call anti-flat Earth videos. There's a team of people working out there. I don't know who they're working for. I could guess. And they're out there putting out disinformation, gaslighting us. Where's the edge of the Earth? How come you don't get stuck to the middle of the Earth? Flat Earth is rising, which causes gravity. We're the only flat planet, or all the other planets are flat, even though they look round. All of that is disinformation. When you understand what the flat Earth is, and I think we've discussed this. You and I did a previous interview where we're not a disk floating in space. We're more like a pond. Think about that. What is a pond? A pond is a body of water. When at rest, it lays flat. When you look out at a pond or a body of non-moving flat water, is it a U? Is it an arch? Or is it flat? And the answer is it's flat. And if you made it twice as big, is it still flat? Yes. 10 times, 100 times. Yes, it's still flat. And the question is, how many bodies of flat water does it take to make a sphere? Well, water is testably, measurably, scientifically, provably flat. We can see too far. And you need curvature if you're on a sphere. So, Jerm, I get your questioning the moon landing. Well, anybody that looks into the moon landing should not only question it, should completely throw it out with the garbage, because it is beyond garbage once you actually look. But the problem is finding that information. When it comes to flat Earth, I talk to people and they go, well, flat Earth is interesting. There's a lot of good arguments there, but I still believe in the globe. And my question to them is, and I'll throw it to you, is what's your number one proof of the globe? What's the one thing, just one of them, that makes you believe we live on a globe, other than...
I can't prove it.
Other than... Yeah. Well, no, not even prove it. What is the reason? What is your best unprovable reason that you think the Earth is a globe? And the best...
It's because I was taught that.
Right, because you were told. Do you think that men in power lie?
Of course they do.
Okay. Has the government lied to us?
Yes.
Do you know what the breakdown of government is? Govern is to control, and ment is the mind. Control the mind, right? You know the acronym for the news, whether it's true or not? News is north, east, west, south. They're steering your mind with fear, false evidence appearing real. Turn on the news, fear, nuclear bombs, right? Russia's going to attack us. We're running out of water. We're running out of fuel. We're running out of food. All of this stuff is engineered fear, because if you are in a state of fear, if you believe that you live on a speck flying through an infinite universe, spinning out of control, traveling billions of miles a year through scientifically provably impossible fake space, then you give away your God-given power to what you call authority. Nobody has authority over you other than in your imagination.
So where does one begin? I mean, how did you arrive at this place?
So I was doing a conspiracy podcast, and now you're a conspiracy tinfoil hat, conspiracy theorist. No, I'm a conspiracy analyst, because the definition of a conspiracy is when two or more men or women get together and conspire for their own benefit. Well, pretty sure that's happening on every possible level. As a matter of fact, this show is a conspiracy because we conspired to put a show out on the station together, right? So technically, it's a conspiracy. Yes. So a conspiracy analyst is somebody that actually takes the time and looks at the evidence and compares them. And when you understand, things that you're told on the news, things that you're told about major events in the world, and you find out there's no evidence of them, that's the actual conspiracy theory. But when somebody looks deeper and go, well, Flight 11 and Flight 175 weren't even scheduled to fly on September 11th. Where did they get the passengers? When you look at evidence and find other more plausible possibilities, that's when you start to see. So I was doing this podcast and people started sending me, hey, Dave, have you looked into flat Earth? We're looking at all sorts of stuff. And like, flat Earth, get out of here. And then they kept on coming, kept on posting on our Facebook, banned. You're no longer allowed to comment here. You're too stupid. Flat Earth. Of course we know the Earth is round. The Greeks figured it out 2,000 years ago with their famous sticks and shadows experiment with Aristophanes and sunsets. How would we have time zones? How would we have seasons? What about boats over the horizons? I've seen boats go over the horizon. But then when you look deeper, you find out that, boats don't go over a physical horizon. They go in to an optical horizon. When you find out that the sticks and shadows experiment doesn't work. And a matter of fact, you can do it, but it doesn't prove either because it works perfectly on a flat Earth. When you find out that time zones are very simple with the sun circling around the flat Earth, when you find out that the edge of the Earth is not, the edge of the flat Earth is not the edge of a disk floating into space, you find out it's the edge of a pond, right? So if all of the world's oceans were like a pond, with all of the islands being the continents, and you were sailing around that lake where the very center of the lake, there was a big, tall island, and it was magnetic. You'd hold your compass, and the north needle would point towards that magnetic mountain. That would be your North Pole of your world. So we're miniaturizing the world into a lake. And so let's say you're on your boat and you say, okay, I want to head west. And you look at your compass and you try to drive west. Well, you're going to have to keep turning to the right, because your needle is going to keep pointing at the center. So when you leave up one island on your little world lake, you're going to circumnavigate the center magnetic pole, and you're going to end up right where you started, and you're going to be heading west the whole time. The same thing is true for east. Think about a compass. The needle's pointing towards the center. You're trying to go 90 degrees to that needle, and it's going to take you right back equidistant from the center point to where you started from. The problem comes on a flat Earth where you try to head south. South is every direction away from the center. Look at your needle, no matter where you are on the lake, put your back to the center of the lake and sail away. What's going to happen? You're going to keep going in a straight line, no curved line like east and west. East and west are circles, and you're going to end up at the edge of the lake. Well, what happens? You fall off a lake? No. You hop out of your boat, you hop up onto the land, you start hiking. Let's call that land Antarctica. Antarctica is the shoreline that surrounds our world. What's beyond that shoreline? We don't know. We're not allowed to go. I just want permission. I want the ability for us to go explore Antarctica, because I believe there's more lands. I believe there's more lakes. A lake would be equivalent to another world with another sun.
David, I will ask you a couple interesting questions in a moment, but before we do that, let me just quickly go to a break.
TNT Radio's Hervoy Morich.
His site publishes hundreds of informative articles, news stories, and videos weekly. Hello, Mark.
I'm glad that TNT radio is a bastion of free speech. There's been a lot just in the last 48 hours, that's gone down from here in the United States. The Georgia Guidestones were blown up, and the next day we have that disheveled buffoon known as the Prime Minister of England resigns, and then early this morning, the assassination of the former Prime Minister of Japan, all within 48 hours. Interesting world we're living in. The thing about the Georgia Guidestones, I wrote a little piece, and so the rebellion to take back our country on Earth has finally begun. I've been waiting for this exact event to take place for years.
Pervoy Morich on today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Nearly every day, we hear dire predictions about climate change from the media establishment, Hollywood, and politicians. They tell us that the world is coming to an end because normal human activity is raising the temperature to dangerous levels. To avoid a hellish apocalypse, they warn us we must immediately change our lifestyles and our very way of life. But are these sensational claims based on solid empirical science? Do the facts line up with the hype? Well, an increasing number of scientists are becoming skeptical. We covered what many of these scientists had to say in our first groundbreaking film, Climate Hustle. From overhyped claims about severe weather events, temperatures, rising sea levels, and even disappearing polar bears, Climate Hustle peeled back the hype and looked at the facts that simply don't add up to any reason for alarm. So this begs the questions. Why would those claiming a global warming catastrophe spread a false narrative? What would motivate them? Why would they try to hustle you? Are they trying to control the climate or you? Well, those are the questions we're going to explore in this film. And the answers may shock you. Order your DVD, Blu-ray, or digital copy today of Climate Hustle 2.
To find out more, go to climatehustle2.com.
Government has taken our rights and will never give them back unless we make them. The voice of freedom is TNT Radio.
I'm chatting to Dave Weiss, and we're talking about the shape of the Earth. I'm just thinking, Dave, it's such a massive subject, and you can go off on so many tangents. But if you were to start with one primary question or set of questions for somebody like me, what would they be?
There's so many different angles to look at it. One of the greatest flat Earth proofs, I say, is that there's no proof of the globe, but there's tons of proof of flat Earth. If you look at the size and you do the math, we can see too far. A ball 24,901 miles around, like they tell us, requires a physical horizon for a 6-foot tall person standing at the edge of calm water to be only 3 miles away. But we all know that we can see much farther than that. And with today's consumer optics, we can zoom in on things that require a ball to be 1,000 times bigger than they tell us. Well, that's a problem. Okay. Imagine the Earth is 1,000 times bigger and they've hidden the rest of it from us. There's only, 8 continents now, and I forget because I believe there's thousands of other continents out there. It's all about control. It's controlling your mind. People like, what? Well, people get frustrated. They're like, all their proofs get knocked down. They go, well, why the lie? Why would so many people lie? They can't, how do they keep a lie a secret?
Yeah, that's the big one. You're right. That's the big one.
It is the big one. And the why the lie is, in my mind, very simple. It's about control. It's about controlling you. If I put you in a park and had a big fence around it, well, you want to go on the other side of that fence. If I put you in a park 5,000 miles around with a big fence, you're going to see that fence. You're going to want to go to the other side of that fence, right? Humans always want to go to the other side of the fence. So instead of putting a fence around us, they put us on a ball. And that way we think there's nothing else beyond Antarctica. But the world just begins at the shoreline of Antarctica, right? We are kept in this lake by the controllers of this world, and they do not want us to go beyond Antarctica. But just getting beyond, anything beyond Antarctica or above, I think 72 miles or give or take, is speculation because I don't believe anyone is gone higher than that, and we're not allowed to explore beyond the very tip of the shoreline of Antarctica. And so But here within our world, every single test that we do proves a flat, stationary Earth. Flat is not a shape; it's a description of level and horizontal. Right? You get a plumb
Sorry,
bob.
when you say
go
yeah, hold on. When you say tests, what do you mean?
Experiments. You can do experiments. For example, here's a topical
Like
one
what?
for you.
Yeah.
The Georgia Guidestones, which no longer exist, had a little hole in the center block and a long channeled hole, I don't know, half an inch in diameter. And you look through it, and there's Polaris. Polaris is our North Star. Well, the Earth is supposedly spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, wobbling, orbiting the sun at 66,600 miles an hour, chasing the sun in a curved trajectory at 500,000 miles per hour, while the entire galaxy is moving sideways at millions of miles per hour, 4 different directions at once. How the heck does Polaris stay stationary through that hole? Now, the best global argument, which is horrible, is, Polaris is so far away that the parallax is when you're moving and things in the foreground and the background change the relationship to each other, that's called parallax. And it's so far away that even though we're traveling 4.5 billion miles every year, that Polaris never moves from that hole because it's so far away. 4.5 billion miles is just too small. This is absolute insanity to believe that. But they said also that when the pyramids were built, also the Great Pyramid of Giza has a shaft that points at Polaris, and they say, the Earth is possessing 2,000 years ago. Whenever the pyramids were built, they were built, and it was pointing towards a different North Star, and the Earth is precessed. And during our time, Polaris is in that hole. Isn't that coincidental? Amazing. We live in the time, right? For thousands of years, there was no star in that hole, but just when we're here now in this round of civilization, Polaris is in that hole. And they say in 2,000 years, there'll be another North Star, Thuban, or maybe it was Thuban before, whatever. It's all nonsense, so I tend to forget the names. So, but if that was true, every 70 years, the sky would move, Polaris would move about a full degree. Well, Georgia Guidestones were up for 40 some odd years. Half a degree would put Polaris so far out of that hole you would never be able to see it from any angle, but it was still there. So why were the Georgia Guidestones knocked down? Maybe because they were a rock solid, no pun intended, or pun intended, proof that we are on a stationary, non-moving, level plane.
But if it's stationary and non-level, how do tides work?
So we're told that the tides go by the gravity of the moon, right? Which is absolutely ridiculous. There's only tides in salt water. Salt water carries the current of this electric magnetic world that we live in. And if you actually look at the tide charts or any of my presentations that I do, the tides, there's little tidal nodes all over the place that have no relation to the moon. There's high tide over here, low tide over here, high tide over here. And if you want to look at the official story of the tides, it's absolute insanity. I'm going to draw a little picture. Try to imagine this. You got your globe Earth. And off to one side you have the moon. And on that side of the Earth you have a high tide because the moon is pulling a bulge of water off the Earth, away from the Earth. Bulging the water up. And on the other side of the Earth, on the opposite side of the Earth, there's also another high tide. Okay? And they claim that the moon is pulling the Earth away from the water on the other side. Okay? If you're having a hard time conceiving this, it's not your fault. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this is the official story. And then the Earth spins through those humps of water. And that's what causes the tide. Well, that doesn't correlate to when we have high tides and low tides. It doesn't work at all. Is there a correlation of high tides and super tides and lower tides with a full moon? Yeah, we have bigger tides when the moon is full because the tides are an electrical phenomena, right? They have to do with the current in the ocean, right? The salt water carries the current. The sun and the moon are the anode and the cathode of the Earth battery. The Earth, the land, is the salt bridge, and we live in this free energy system. They don't want us to know that there's free energy. They don't want us to know that, They're controlling us with food, energy, and freedom and knowledge. That's how they control the human race. It's all about control.
David, I'll be back with you after these quick news headlines.
With a check of the day's headlines, I'm Darren Metzer. Britain is bracing for its hottest day on record, with temperatures forecast to top 41 degrees Celsius for the first time in the country since records began. 5 children have been removed from a home in South Australia, after a 6-year-old girl was allegedly neglected by her parents, and left to die at the property. And an armed civilian is being hailed as a hero in the United States, after shooting and killing a man who opened fire on shoppers at a mall in Indiana.
On air and on the app.
I listen on the app.
Stay up to date around the clock.
I listen, therefore I know. Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
David, chat to me a bit about circumnavigating the Antarctic. I've always wondered, isn't it possible to take drones or a ship or something and go right around and prove it?
Yeah. Let me jump into that, but let me just throw in real quick. For those of you listening that think this is crazy, I have a 3 Bitcoin challenge. Go to my app at flatearthdave.com, watch the daily video every day for 2 weeks. And at the end of that, if you have 1 proof of the globe, send it to me and you win 3 Bitcoins. But before you do, you have to check out the frequently asked questions section to make sure I didn't already answer your question thoroughly. All right. So circumnavigation.
Yeah.
So you understand how circumnavigation works on a flat Earth. You know, North Pole at the center, and just like I was talking about, we go around a lake, east and west. So on a globe, if you're at the North Pole, circumnavigating, if you're a mile from the North Pole, will only take you 6.28 miles. You go around, and you're right back to where you started from, because you're always looking at the North Pole with your north needle. Then, as you get farther and farther away, that circle gets bigger and bigger until you get to the equator, where it's 24,901 miles around. Then as you start going down the globe, lower and lower lines of latitude, that's going to get smaller and smaller. And the circumference of Antarctica on the globe is somewhere between 10 and 13,000 miles. So that would be a great proof we live on a globe, is just take a boat and circumnavigate Antarctica while you can see it the whole time. Okay? And Captain Cook tried that years ago. It took him 3.5 years. I think he did it 3 times. And he measured over 60,000 miles. Well, if the equator is 24,901, how did he go 60,000 at a lower latitude where it should only be 10 to 13,000? All right. So here's a simple test that science could do today, be done before the end of the day, and put flat Earth to rest. Get 2 airplanes, fly them from Santiago, Chile to the base over on Antarctica, fuel up the planes. Jerm, me, you, Neil deGrasse Tyson, professors, anybody. We get a whole bunch of people on each plane. One plane takes off and goes one plane takes off, goes counterclockwise, flies like 1,000 feet in the air right off the shore so we can watch the shoreline the whole way. Because once you're away from the shoreline, you don't know where you're going. GPS run by NASA is going to tell you where you're going. So we follow the shoreline. The other one goes the other way, looks out the other window. And, 6 to 9 hours later, both planes should meet on the other side of Antarctica, but it won't happen because it's not 10 to 13,000 miles. It's over 60,000 miles. And the other reason it won't happen is they won't let you because they know the result. People say, well, you can go to Antarctica. There's 100 different companies. All of those companies are run by the same guy. One guy has 100 shell companies to take you on a very expensive trip to see some penguins and some ice on the outer tip of Antarctica. That's all you get to see. Okay. So there was a sailboat race that actually the Antarctic circumnavigation race. I think it takes like a month or longer. And these high-tech sailboats that fly, the best sailboats ever, they went around, but they're going at like 50, 55 degrees south. You're not even anywhere near Antarctica. And when you actually do the math, they are in the southern hemisphere. When you do the math, they do the math based on GPS. Well, we're at 55 degrees south. So we, according to the globe, our circumnavigation should be, let's say 20,000 miles or 15,000 miles. And that means we went an average of, 3 miles per hour. Well, the reason they're getting an average of 3 miles per hour when these boats when they're tied to the dock, can go 3 miles an hour. They're more likely going 20 to 25 miles an hour, is because that's not the distance you went. The distance you went was probably closer to 50,000 miles. And then they do the math and they go, oh, we were only going 3 miles an hour, and nobody questions it. We have a video coming out. It'll be featured on the app next week about this race, where we took the race, we converted it, put it on a flat Earth map, and showed you how this race only makes sense on a flat Earth.
What I guess. Okay, let me rephrase my question. I have looked through multiple telescopes over the years, and this is a wonderful array of telescopes here in South Africa, in the middle of nowhere. Very, very powerful. And I remember looking through one, and I looked at Saturn, and I looked at the ring around it, and it was very clear, and it looked very round to me and very far away. What is it that I was looking at?
Well, so you're assuming it's far away because you're told it's far away. But if Saturn was the size of an apple and I had it in a dark field with nothing else to reference, I had a round light with a lit up ring in a dark black, area, and I told you that this thing was, 500 miles wide, you go, wow, that's far away because it's so tiny, right? But in reality, the sizes and distances of planets, when you actually take the time and do the math, which we'll do in a second, it shows you that they're scientifically impossible. Yes, Saturn looks like a sphere to me. But I ask you right now, look up at the ceiling that you're in, the room you're in right now, and look at the lights and describe the shape of your floor based on the shape of those lights. It has no correlation. So let's just talk about the distance of planets. So why do we see Saturn? Why do we see Jupiter? Why do we see Mars? And the heliocentric answer is because the sun's reflecting off of them. Okay, that's good. So Jupiter, a gaseous, non-reflective surface, is much, much, much farther from the sun than we are. Therefore, the sun, viewed from Jupiter, is much smaller than we see it. So imagine yourself standing on Jupiter and looking at the sun. It looks like a big star, a tiny, tiny little sun, not nearly as big as we see it from Earth. Well, that little star, that big star, is going to light up Jupiter. It's going to light up the surface of Jupiter. That reflection is going to travel all the way back to Earth. And I'm going to see it brighter than any star in the sky? I don't think so. And there's a thing called the inverse square law of light. Every time you double the distance to any light, it's 1/4 of the brightness. So anytime you half the distance to a light, it's 4 times brighter. The brightness that Saturn would have to be, or Jupiter, or any of them, the moon, would have to be viewed from Earth, is brighter than we see the sun by magnitudes. Okay? It would have to be that bright on the surface for us to see it at the brightness that we're seeing it. None of it makes any sense. And the distances, let me quickly hit the distances, right? Polaris is our North Star. You can see it with your naked eye. It's a pretty bright star up there. They tell us it's 48 times bigger than our sun. Okay, that's good. Well, our sun is 8 light minutes away. Right? If our sun was a mile over our head, it would fill the whole sky. Move it 8 light minutes away, it's the size of a coin held at arm's length. Double that distance. You think you could see it?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, well, hold on. Double the distance. All right. How about if we quadrupled the distance? That's 4 times farther. That's a light half hour. 8 times farther. That's a light hour. 1 light hour away. It's impossible to see. 1 light hour away. Well, Polaris is 48 times bigger. So 1 light hour times 48 is 2 light days. Polaris at 2 light days away is scientifically provably impossible to see, ignoring the problem with the inverse square law where the brightness, okay? Ignoring that at 2 light days away, they tell us it's 433 light years away. Okay? Compute that. Think about that. Well, if I can't see it at 2 light days away, well, then I can't see it at a light week away, at a light month, a light year, 400 years. I mean, the multiplication is ridiculous. This alone proves that what they're telling us stars are, what planets are, is not true. That's it. Unwind the whole thing. NASA's a lie. The whole Earth is a lie. Everything's a lie. Throw it out. Look at the evidence, right? Jerm, you believe that the Earth is a globe. What? I don't know. I think they're souls, if you ask me. I think they're sentient in nature, but that's me. That's Dave Weiss saying that. Okay. We don't know. Here's the only thing that we know about the sun, moon, and stars. The only thing that you can absolutely positively say is that they're lights in the sky. Nothing else can be said about them. That's absolutely true. Okay.
What about the sun and the moon? Are they also lights in the sky?
Well, the sun and the moon are lights in the sky because you can see them. So that's a silly question. So what are they? Well, the sun, God, it does throw some heat down. I think it's a reflection of the source, the true source, which is above what we call the firmament or within the firmament. And I think that we see a projected focal point of that energy. Like when you take a magnifying glass and make that little dot that burns ants. I know you did it as a kid. Don't deny it. Okay. I did. You lifted, I know, of course you did. And if you lift up the magnifying glass a foot in the air, well, that dot disappears, but it's still there. It's just in the air. Move your hand around, find the spot in the air, and you'll see. Ow, it'll burn you. But take a look at that dot. It really looks like the sun. So perhaps the firmament is focusing the sun into our sky. The best quote I heard recently is, it's a transformer from another dimension. That makes the most sense. We don't know what it is, but it's electrical in nature. Think about this: solar power panels, solar power panels. Is that right? I was in the business. I should know how to say it. Scientists do not know how they work. Well, that's because scientists believe that a photon took 1 billion years to come from the center of the sun and then 8 light minutes to come to Earth and crash into the solar panel, when in fact that's not the case at all. It's electricity that the sun is sending to Earth, and it hits the panel, and the panel just collects it and runs it into currents. Okay? So what do I mean it's electricity? Well, get 2 house plants and put one in front of a fireplace and one in front of an electric lamp. Which one's going to grow? Which one's going to shrivel up and die? We are electrical beings. We live in an electrical world. Okay. Everything is electricity. Your body is electricity. Okay. Every motion, every force on earth is electric and magnetic, with your brother and sister. And once you start understanding this stuff that they don't teach you in school, or they don't teach you how to think this way, then you'll start to see through this lie. And once you see through the lie, you look at the flat earthers out there, we are growing rapidly. On my app, on the Friend Finder, it's becoming a dating app, a job app, a friend finder. It's amazing. We're just about to hit 70,000 people on the Friend Finder alone. And it's growing because once you see flat earth, it opens your eyes. The globe is the matrix. It's a prison for your mind. It stops you from thinking beyond the round earth. It stops you from thinking beyond the horizon. The horizon is imaginary. The limit of your thoughts are limitless, and your thoughts create your world. Okay. But if they can limit your thoughts, keep you in fear, steer your mind, make you believe in scarcity, make you believe that a nuclear bomb's going to come when nuclear bombs don't exist. Okay. If you want to do a show on that, let's talk later. I'll hook you up with Crow 777. Nuclear bombs don't exist. And once you understand that, what about Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Well, those were just fire bombs. Everything was running 3 days later. Sandwich shops were open. Flower shops were open. The trains were running, and everybody was back to work 3 days later. That unwinds the entire nuclear bomb story. So all of this fear is to control your mind. But it's been programmed into us so deep that... Go ahead.
No. I interrupted you. Just finish your point quickly, and then I'll ask you my question. Sorry.
I said it controls us. We've been programmed so deeply from birth that it's really hard to let go, because your ego has to go, yep, everything I've known is a lie. Everything I've based in my worldview is based on top of a lie. Well, it's like having the carpet ripped out from underneath you. The good news is there's a solid foundation underneath you, unlike the spinning, wobbling, insignificant speck of dust flying through an infinite, impossible space vacuum. Once you understand where you are, who you are, what you are, and the power of your mind, you unplug from the heliocentric matrix.
David, I was going to ask you a question, but before I do that, let's just quickly go to an ad break.
De-weaponizing weather with reality and perspective.
The latest European long-range computer model is bowing down to the U.S. model and to the Japanese model, which have been trying to hint that there's going to be cooling at the end of the month. Now, this is crucial. If you get sustained heat, just relentless, where every single day is above normal and some days extremely hot, that is what puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the grid. But suppose you get a few days where it's cool, or a few days where temperatures are back down below normal. And we've got a shot at that. For the next 7 to 10 days, the heat is going to be expanding across much of southern and central Europe. But there's a possibility the cooler air that will be hanging out in Scandinavia, where Greta is, of course, will try to push itself more south and west with time. This is meteorologist Joe Bastardi for TNT Radio. And remember, no matter what the weather, enjoy the weather. It is the only weather you've got.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Silence for thinking differently? Not here. Silence for asking questions? Not here. Silence for discussing the other side of the story? Not on TNT Radio. Join the conversation anytime. Search TNT Radio on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Getter, or Gab. Download the TNT Radio app for free from the App Store or Google Play. Today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
Yeah, I must say, I really appreciate TNT Radio for allowing conversations like this to happen. One thing I can say for certain is that whether or not you agree or disagree with David Weiss, I am very, very, very appreciative of a station like this that will allow this conversation, because the idea seems so foreign to so many people. But I mean, David, why is it so foreign? Is it because of just mass propaganda?
Our whole lives are based on globe propaganda, and there's a reason for it, because if you see the prison walls, you will no longer participate in the prison system. And once people wake up to the flat earth, people go, there's so much going on in the world right now. We don't have time to argue about the shape of the earth. And that's the problem. It's not the shape of the earth that matters. It's the lie. It's your position within the world, your position within creation, and the true power that you have, the freedom that God gave you and nobody can take away. You know, God, man, government. Well, government has climbed on top of man already, and now they're trying to get on top of the creator. So this is what people don't understand. You know, when I first started this, I guess I was a full-on atheist, but now I understand there's a creator. I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form. I understand that we live in an intelligent system that has amazing, you know, this is literally an amusement park with amazing features. It is incredible, the things that we can do and the things that there are to do and the wonders of this world, and they're hiding it all from us. On my app, Jerm, do you have my app yet?
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you have my app?
No, I don't. I'm sorry to say.
It's okay. It's called the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It bypasses Google censorship. It will show you that you absolutely do not live on a globe. It'll give you tons of information, but there's other resources in there, including the stuff about the mud floods, our history, all sorts of stuff. It's one of the highest rated apps in the store. You can find everything at flatearthdave.com. It's a $3 app. Mind-blowing, life-changing. Just go read the reviews. Everybody, do not buy my app. Just go click the link on my website, flatearthdave.com. Do not buy the app. Just go and read the reviews. Okay?
But David, hold on. We'll do the promo. We'll do the promo in a few minutes. But I just want to ask you.
No problem.
I mean, John Lennon once imagined above us only sky. What is above us then?
Well, that's a great question, because there is, and flat earthers, we're trying to figure it out. There has to be some sort of containment, because on the heliocentric system, we have a space vacuum, no pressure, the worst of no pressure, a vacuum, and next adjacent to a pressurized system. Well, if you actually look at science, nothing can happen that way. No experiment in nature or in a lab can have high pressure next to low pressure without a physical barrier. Well, the globers say, well, gravity is their god. Gravity is holding the air down to the earth like Velcro. Okay. Well, if that was true at any altitude, I should not be able to use a straw and suck air or liquid up and away from earth with the weak low pressure system of my mouth and lungs. But I can, right? If gravity was holding the earth, the air down to the earth, then if I was holding a shoebox in the middle of a room upright and I sucked all of the air out of the room from below the shoebox should remain filled with air due to gravity holding it down. Well, we all know that's not true. If you had a room above that room that had no air in it and you had a valve between those rooms and you open the valve and instantly they would equalize in pressure. Right? You can't have high pressure, which we live in, adjacent to a vacuum. It's scientifically impossible, and the leaps of faith that you have to take to make them believe that that's a real thing are beyond anything that I'm willing to do.
But why do things fall?
Why do things fall? Because of buoyancy and density. If I drop a pen, it's more dense than the air. If I hold a helium balloon, it's less dense than the air and it goes up. But the real question is, well, what determines down? How come it doesn't go sideways? And the answer is, as I said before, the only true forces in this world are electricity and magnetism. Well, the Earth has what's called a negative charge, a very low charge, a negative charge. And the air, the sky, has a positive charge. These are testably, measurably, scientifically, provably facts. These aren't theories. Well, the Earth is not moving. Well, whenever you lift something up off the floor, off the ground, it is now surrounded by a positive charge. And the negative charge says, come this way. Now, check this out. That negative charge, the scientific negative charge of the Earth, which is not a theory, is, they say, 10 to the, I forget how many zeros, stronger than the fictional theory of gravity force. So that electrostatic force that I just told you about that does exist is magnitudes stronger than the gravity force, which is a theory, right? So my question to the globers is, well, how do you know that it's gravity that's making you go down and not that electric force that we could actually test? We do tests where you get a little, look up triangle, tinfoil, anti-gravity, whatever, and you'll see it on YouTube. And they take they put a negative charge into this little triangle and it floats up off the air. And we've done tests. If you hit the gravity button on the app, where we add a positive charge to something or a negative charge, and it changes its weight, it changes its density, and it goes down toward. When you add a positive charge to something, it gets pulled down to the earth. You add a negative charge, it goes up. Okay, and this gets into anti-gravitics. Wrong word. These are propulsion systems that they don't want us to know about. They want us to believe that nuclear power is dangerous and stuff. There's stuff that we can heat our houses for free. Imagine if you could buy something the size of a roll of quarters that will heat your house for the next 50 years. Okay? Imagine that. You have to do nothing to it. It'll just heat your house for 50 years. And then you buy another roll of quarters, which are magnetic, and that'll power your house for the next 100 years. They can't have that because then they can't control you.
Okay, so David, I've got a sort of a combined question.
Go.
On the one hand, I can look up in the sky and I'll see a lunar eclipse, and on the other hand, I'll see satellites orbiting the Earth, and they're predictable. I can time them. Yeah. What am I seeing?
Well, first, the satellites that you're seeing are scientifically impossible to see. Do you think you could see a Volkswagen Beetle at a mile away? Maybe. Right? Yeah. Maybe. Do you think you could see it at 10 miles away?
With great difficulty.
How about 250 miles away?
No.
Its angular size is magnitudes too small to see. These satellites are smaller than a Volkswagen Beetle, and they're farther than the distance that I just gave you. They're scientifically impossible to see. You are seeing lights up there. Now, when we see the International Space Station, which I have seen, it's a light brighter than any star in the sky. It's literally like a piece of the sun when it goes by. There's several different things that they do. They have aircraft that are covered with LED lights that they use to fake. They have some sort of projection holographic system, which doesn't work as well. It's very jumpy when they use that, and they're faking it. And they're spending a lot of time and money because money doesn't matter to these people. These are the people that make them, print the money. It's fake, but you could not see the International Space Station. Think about this. If you ever stand next to a 747 on the ground, it's gigantic. The engines are massive. The engines are huge, like the size of a freaking bus. And then at altitude, you can barely see the plane and you can't see the engines. They're too small. Well, that's only 5 miles up, right? Well, do you think you could see a satellite the size of the engine, 200 times farther than that? No, you can't. And also the International Space Station is 50 times farther than that airplane at cruising altitude that you can barely see. You could not see it, but people just believe without checking, without thinking. Science, facts, the way our eyes work, measurements that we can verify prove that these lights that you're seeing are not what they tell you. That's the problem.
And the lunar eclipse?
The lunar eclipse is the Earth casting a shadow on the moon. It doesn't work that way. They have, they say, well, light goes straight. Well, light goes umbra penumbra. And when you use a sphere to cast a shadow on another sphere, this is weird. It comes out as a straight line. Okay. Use a sphere, get a basketball and a baseball or whatever, and line up with a light. When you try to cast a shadow on one sphere to another sphere, it comes out as a straight line. But if you actually use a straight line, straight edge to cast a shadow on a sphere, it does come out curved. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going on the moon. I believe that when we see a lunar eclipse, it's an electrical phase of the moon light itself. The moon is its own light. It's not reflecting sunlight. And people have a hard time with that. But when you take the time, which we don't have here, and look into it, you'll see on the app, there's a button called eclipses. Watch those videos and you'll have more questions of what the hell the moon is than you did before, but you'll know that a lunar eclipse is not caused by the Earth. And that's provable because there's many eclipses that happen where the observer can see the sun and the moon both above opposite horizons, well above opposite horizons. Okay? And that's not, the Earth has to be in between them.
I remember, David, when I was young, I saw Halley's Comet, and it's a predictable experience every 60, 65, 70 years. Let
me ask you a question. The Earth is corkscrewing through space at 4.5 billion miles a year. So 4.5 billion miles times 76. How the heck did Halley's find us again? Okay. How the hell does it keep coming back and finding us? Now, what is it? You're thinking it's a big rock or piece of ice floating in space, when in fact it's predictable. Just like the lights in the sky that they call wandering stars now, used to be they call planets, used to be called wandering stars. Those are predictable, okay? But if you look into the gravitational model, right, which they've changed, it's now gone from mass attracting gravity to the bending of space-time. There's a thing called the three-body problem. You try to model out three bodies and it doesn't work. The best supercomputers can't figure out what those bodies are going to do just a very short time into the future. Right? They can't figure it out. And we have trillions of bodies, right? The sun, the moon, the planets, the stars, all of it predictable. Think about this. We live in a heliocentric beehive where gravity is just magically holding everything in place beautifully. Did you know that the pattern of eclipses repeat every 18 years? The whole eclipse pattern repeats every 18 years. That's the working of a finely designed clock, not a random beehive, gravitational, nonsensical, impossible space vacuum.
It's a lot to take in, David. We've only got 2 minutes left, so come in for a landing.
FlatEarthDave.com. Don't believe a single word that I say. Take the challenge. There's 2 ways to take it. Download the app, which you won't regret, and watch the daily video every day for 2 weeks. Check the frequently asked questions, and you too will become a full-on globe denier, minimum flat Earth supporter, 100%, and you'll never turn back. The other way to do it is if you don't have a smartphone, it's only for smartphones, iPads, and tablets, if you scroll down on my website to the Flat Earth Crash Course, there's a list of videos right there. There's probably 10, 20 videos in there. Just get through the first 3 and you too will know that you don't live on a globe anymore. Just watch them. We've done the work for you. Don't believe anything. Watch it, then go verify it yourself. We've done the work for you. We've put it together in video format, right? People are lazy. They don't want to think. They want to have it done for them. We did it all for you, right? We did it all for you. Sit back, grab a cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever you want. Watch these videos on the big screen. Bring a notepad because you're going to have questions, and then go, wow, my whole life is a lie. And now you've been reborn into your true being, right? We are here at the center of creation.
David Weiss, thank you for joining me in the trenches. It is it is quite a mind-bending conversation, but I will say this. It certainly makes me hold the mirror up to my own worldview, makes me question things that I otherwise wouldn't question. So thank you, Dave, for your time. And thank you for listening to me today. My name is Jerm. This is Jerm Warefare, the Battle of Ideas on TNT Radio.